Testing, testing, testing. One, two, three. Hey, good morning from my basement. It's been a whirlwind. The last hour, let me just turn off this little bit of feedback because I had a show to Australia last night, and I was focused on that and realized I had a show at 11:30 this morning, and I had to scramble to pull it together. Not only that, I got a piece of new gear which lets me use a different video camera, which I think has a lot better quality. So welcome, thanks for tuning in. This is week number 4. And I'm really getting pumped by what I'm doing here because look, I mean, Australia last night, I had a huge home run with my audience. I had close to 100 people sign in from Adelaide, Australia, and from throughout Asia. And I spoke about the future. I spoke about trends. I spoke about resilience. I spoke about the need to continually reinvent ourselves. You might have noticed from the recorded video that was there. That's my highlight clip from the olden days when I used to actually go out to stages. But one of the quotes that I captured there about 30 seconds before going live here was reinvent relentlessly. And I think that's what it's all about right now, given the speed of change that we find ourselves in. My circumstances are entirely different. Your circumstances are entirely different. The future is entirely different. So it's everything that we do to try to ensure that we can figure out a new reality that will really determine our reality. So I keep changing things up. I keep pushing the boundaries with what I'm doing with my weekly broadcast here. And I'm really getting kind of excited by, I think, where I can go. But I think I also need to talk about failure. And the fact of failure, look, is a great thing. I started out in show one, utilizing a lot of innovative technology with a green screen and, kind of excited by what I could do. And so I really pushed the limits with show number two. I had 3 different cameras, different camera angles, and really pushed the boundaries of production. I was kind of pumped by what I accomplished. I thought it was really cool. And I'm participating in an online community of folks who are using the same software for online broadcasting, and I shared it with them. And I thought it was great. It was a failure. It was a dismal failure. It was a pretty bad failure. A fellow who I think, obviously has some video and staging production background said that I went too far. The camera angles were too fuzzy. The technology I was using was a little bit pushed to the extreme. And I was more focused on sort of the show and tell of the technology and not the story. I was kind of crushed. I failed. I mean, I thought I'd done a great job and I didn't. It was a disaster. But after, an hour or so of feeling bad about it, I figure, okay, let's try and fix that. So working with new gear, I've got a, dramatic new backdrop here that you can see has been designed by my son, Willie, to put some context and professionalism on what I'm trying to do here. Because I think that is what is important is we need to continually work ourselves to push ourselves. Because look at my old life. I mean, I'd walk out on stage, I'd have, 50 people, 20 people, whatever the stage crew was, big, glorious stage. And hugely pumped when you walk out in the room in front of 5,000 people. And now I'm hanging out in my basement. This is a little bit of B-roll that I filmed the other day for a TV crew, showing them what I'm doing. If you watch carefully here, you will see my wife, also known as the bodyguard, making a cameo appearance. She helped me with a little bit of the filming. But I mean, when you go from a stage in Las Vegas to 7,000 people to your basement, it's kind of hard to reinvent yourself. And maybe that's why failure is a good thing, because what you are really doing is you're learning through accomplishment. You're learning by trying to push the boundaries. You're learning by trying to make mistakes. And maybe that is some guidance that can take you forward as you go forward into your future, whatever it might be, whatever your leadership position, whatever you're doing as an entrepreneur. The more mistakes you make, the better positioned you will be for success going forward into the future. So, I think failure is a good thing. I failed. It wasn't very great, but boy, did I learn a lot, and I continue to push the boundaries. And I tell you, I'm getting really excited for this weekly broadcast every single week. What I decided early on was I was not going to be like every topic expert out there who was suddenly moving into a world of Zoom webinars. Have you been on a few of these? They're all the same. You get someone who's, talking on a Zoom camera and they're showing some PowerPoints. Look, in the old world, in the olden days, 2 months ago, people hated speakers and topic experts and leaders who simply walked through a PowerPoint deck. It doesn't cut it. Attention spans are different. We don't pay attention in this online world. We need to do something entirely different. And that's why I decided I was going to shake it up. I was going to, build myself, in effect, a stage in my basement. And I was really going to push the boundaries in terms of the production capability that I have. So here's a clip from last week where what I was doing was working with a variety of backdrops, a very intense production, just like I'm on stage in Las Vegas, but doing it from my basement, because we do need to challenge people to think differently, because attention spans have truly collapsed. So not a PowerPoint. It's not going to be the same old thing. Now, what does this lead to? It can get you some dramatic attention. You'll remember the story, if you were online last week, about the farmer outside of Toronto who saw his world collapse and quickly set up an online e-commerce site for his farmer market activities and all the other farmers in his region who previously sold their product at farmers markets in the city of Toronto. Not only did they set up an e-commerce site, but they also established a delivery service using university students and others. Well, you know, this was a magical story, and I continue to follow it. Right after I filmed last week at 11:30 on Thursday, I was contacted by Global National News, and they wanted to talk about how are Canadians reinventing themselves to deal with the reality of what is occurring in this new world. And I said, boy, have I got a story for you. Give me 5 minutes and let me go to my studio. So I went online, came down to the basement, threw up a futuristic backdrop, and ended up filming an interview with a reporter. It turned into a national news story that ran throughout the weekend. I'm going to share the first 30 seconds with you, and I'm going to run the full clip at the end. But I think this is the power of reinvention. Huge.
On this Saturday night, Canadian Reinvention.
It's all about, you know, what we are doing to try to get ready for tomorrow.
The traditional business model takes on a new twist.
Global National with Robin Gill.
You know, look, we've got, I'm getting my stagecraft still working here. We've got to work hard to figure out a new reality. Everybody is doing this. So reinvention is my word of the week in failure. Reinventing yourself through failure. I was really encouraged to realize I'm not the only one going through this remarkable voyage. I came across a story of one entertainer who has actually set himself up in this massive new popular online video game involving animals. I can't remember the exact title for this game, but he's set himself up with a show inside this video game in order to reach out to people in new and innovative ways. Talk about innovation, talk about thinking differently, talk about trying to do something you haven't done before. I think that's the mindset which really needs to drive us forward. You'll remember last week I was talking about what is happening with curbside pickup and how the world of retail is working so quickly to try to deal with the new realities of lockdowns and social distancing and ever-evolving policies as to what they can do in the store. I am stunned by the speed of change that retailers are getting themselves involved in to deal with the realities occurring. And just this morning, I open up, some local news sources, and there is a story about someone in the grocery and retail space who is looking at deploying a series of trucks that are like the old ice cream trucks, except they're full of groceries, and they're going to drive around neighborhoods to let you choose your product rather than you having to go to the grocery store to pick your product, and rather than you having to use an e-commerce online site to get your product. They're going to bring the product to you. There is such a level of creativity and innovation that is occurring out there. I mean, I can barely keep up. I am so excited by what I am seeing. Then I saw a story from London Drugs. They're a massive retailer and their world has been changed. And you know what they have done to support local activities is they've set up the capability for local retailers with products to come in and use some of their store shelf space and their warehouse space to help them sell. We all know that everybody is working hard to give back to the community, doing their good deeds to try to accelerate the speed by which we can all get through this thing. And I think this is one of those very powerful examples of creative innovation and really thinking differently in terms of what they can do rather than just running one of those commercials you've seen with the piano music and we're all in this together and we're all struggling to deal. All these commercials are the same. This is something that is real, it's powerful, it's giving back. And when I see things like that, boy, innovation is alive and well out there. Are people thinking of as to what they need to do? Well, I'm coming across an increasing number of corporate organizations who are establishing what I would call war rooms. They've got to be able to deal faster with all the trends which are enveloping them. They've got to come up with strategies. They've got to come up with really proven and unproven methods of dealing with the reality of what is occurring. And so they're creating a leadership team which is helping them to analyze, to think, to strategize, to come up with creative ways of dealing with whatever the issue is in their particular industry. And I was actually approached in the beginning of the week for one large organization that has a regular war room meeting. And they've caught wind of what I've been talking about in terms of creativity, innovation in this new world. And we're in a period of discussions to see if I might be able to come in and give them an inspiring message on how to keep pushing themselves forward in this era of dramatic change. The photo here, by the way, from the movie Doctor Strangelove, one of the best movies of all time. So what do we really need to do? We need to fail. We need to take risks. We need to try to do things that we haven't done before. No matter what your circumstances are, that's what you need to do in order to keep moving. I think we've got to put our strategy under a constant microscope where we are examining it. We're trying to figure out, what do we need to do? How can we change it? How can we shake it up? Disruption in the old world used to be about massive new trends which were coming at you and what you needed to do to align yourself to the reality of those trends. Disruption in the new world, I think, is something different. And it's all about speed. It's all about our agility. It's all about our capability to respond. And so for me, my watchword has become rapid reinvention is the most critical thing that we can be doing. Push the boundaries. Try to do things you haven't done before. Go to my list of innovation killers. And that really becomes your watchword for what you can do and where you can go in the future. So back to Australia. I was online live at 8 p.m. Toronto, Canada last night, broadcasting down there at 9:30 Western Australia time. I guess they're a little bit like Newfoundland, a half hour off. And I covered a series of future trends with them. I walked through a variety of different ways of analyzing when particular trends might become real and what we need to be thinking about. But I also walked them through a series of guidance as to what they could and should be doing. And I thought it was a really good series of points. So I'm going to walk through those same points with you today. You know that I've used this particular picture before. I've got a stage monitor in front of me here, and I haven't quite figured out the direction of which way my hands are going. Look, I've said this before, and I will say it again. I wrote a column for the Globe and Mail in 2002 when we had the economic collapse that came with the dot-com collapse in 9/11. And I said, here's what I'm observing with my clients. Everybody's becoming indecisive. Nobody's making a decision. They're not certain as to what is going to happen in the future. And so the easiest thing to do is let's not just make a decision. Let's defer decisions. And in my column, in this national publication, I said, look, what's happening with people is not only are they becoming indecisive, they are becoming aggressively indecisive. They are letting indecision rule everything they do. And that's the worst thing we can be doing right now. You have to make decisions to go ahead. You have to decide to do something differently. To do that, you've got to be optimistic. We don't know how this thing is going to unfold. Every week is a different week, and every day is an emotional day. I have up days, I have down days. You get, something tremendously positive, like appearing in the national news, and then the next day something else happens. You're like, whoa, this is really bad. But you have to focus on relentless optimism in terms of the opportunities. That's what's driving these folks with this concept of having grocery delivery. You've got to join the 10%. Look, go and read that article on my website from the study from GE that 60% of organizations in a period of economic decline for every recession going back to the last 7 years, 60% sort of muddled their way through. They didn't do anything big and bold. They just sort of, we're going to do what's, might get us there. 30% didn't make it. They went bankrupt. They disappeared. They were bought out. They were merged. 10% became a breakthrough performance. I am determined that as we go through this thing, I am going to be one of the leading futurists out there in the world of online webinars and Zoom and other broadcasts, because I'm going to challenge my audiences with original content. I'm going to challenge them with a non-boring stage performance. I am going to do things that are different from everyone else out there. And I think the opportunity is real. Look, one of my speaker bureau agents, they represent Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and other folks like that, and me. Another one of my speaker bureau representatives represents George Bush and James Comey and Colin Powell. I've had a rocket ride of career. I'm blessed, and every once in a while I have a pinch me moment, to sit back and think about where I've managed to get to. But I know right now I need to work harder than ever before because suddenly everybody in the world wants to reach out to clients in this new Zoom based basement format. And I got to be different. I want to be a part of the 10%. I'm going to be someone who is going to be a breakthrough performer in this new world. I think to do that, we need to check our speed. You know, the book I wrote years ago, The Future Belongs to Those Who Are Fast. And this is so true. This is so real at this very moment because every day I'm looking around at the trends. I'm looking around at the speed with which organizations are changing and preparing and adapting. Everybody is moving fast. I'm going to move fast. You have to move fast because I think truly we're going to look back 5 or 10 years from now and go, wow. I mean, that was an incredible period of time. There was so much happening. And you don't want to be someone who's going to sit back in 5 years and go, wow, I'm really sad I missed out on that. I'm really sad I chose not to participate. I'm really sad that I deferred a lot of decisions. I'm really sad that I was really, really slow. You need to move along the curve faster. The 7 stages of economic grief. I cannot emphasize this, enough. We go through these, period of process of bereavement with what is happening here as the COVID-19 crisis continues to unfold. Anger, denial, bargaining. You got to get to the acceptance stage faster because the sooner you get there, the better positioned you will be to align to the future. You have to rethink the issue of timing. I've been talking to a number of folks about the Gartner hype cycle and the reality that, what has occurred for every single trend which comes to our world, every single technology, every single opportunity. We go through the peak of inflated expectations, and then we realize it's a lot of work to make it go. We hit the trough of disillusionment, but eventually we hit the plateau of productivity. And what I'm emphasizing to folks that I'm having discussions with about particular trends from the olden days is I'm putting those under a new microscope in terms of their timing as to how and when they might unfold. Number 7, how do you really align to this faster future? Really harvest the big global idea machine that is the internet. I discovered gold in an online community of the folks who are all utilizing the same software that I'm using for my home-based broadcast. And I tell you, this is like drinking from a fire hose. I am getting so many ideas, in terms of what I can do, in terms of innovative concepts. A simple little idea like the magical backdrop that my son put together to add an additional level of professionalism to what I'm doing. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter your industry, no matter what concepts you are trying to pursue, there has never been a better time to try to use the internet, to use community, to use collaborative tools, to discover the magic of what you can do to reinvent yourself and really seek the feedback on what you're doing and learn when you're failing so that you can then focus on improving from your failure. The words of the day, failure and reinvention on a continuous basis. Fail faster. I am so happy that my second show was a disaster because I've learned so much and it really pushed me out of any form of complacency with respect to what I might be doing. The more we fail, the better positioned we are for success. We got to do all this in the context that we don't know exactly where we're going. When I was online with Australia last night, I said, look, the reality is, here's our future today. We don't know exactly where we're going, but we're certainly making great time. Number 10, grow the force. Look, Baby Yoda, I mean, I just like the picture. I had to use it. What am I trying to get across here? You have to look at the longer term. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this period of time and realize that it's what we engendered inside our soul in terms of our ability to keep focused on opportunity and going forward that would really define our future. So there's my 10 list, a list of 10 things that you could be thinking about today to try to move yourself forward. So where do we want to close? Well, last night with my broadcast to Australia, I was thinking I could be on a beach down in Australia. I went through my 10 great words, and this is something I used on the stage for a period of time from about 2002 to 2015. It was really powerful. I always noticed people in the audience writing down these 10 words because they really became a structure for people to try to move forward. So I'm going to share them with you in the close today. What do we do to align ourselves to a faster future? Well, number 1, observe. Trends are still happening. They're unfolding at a staggering pace. They're unfolding in a new and different way. And it's your ability to watch those trends that will define you. Think about what the trends are telling you. Think about where they are taking you. Think about what they imply, and determine what you need to change. What do you need to change in your organization? What do you need to change with your attitude? What do you need to change in terms of how you approach each and every day? Focus on change, because otherwise you become stuck. Dare, take risks, make mistakes, do things you haven't done before. I've committed to going live every single week, Thursday at 11:30, regardless of what might go wrong. When you're going live to a global audience like this, anything can happen. But I can tell you, I went live last night at 8 p.m. to Australia, and it was a magical show. It was a success. I think it was a success because of the previous failures I had. Banish. If you follow me, you know I talk about the innovation killers. These are the attitudes, the cultures that hold us back from pursuing the future. The phrases we use, well, you can't do that because we've always done it this way. It won't work. It's doomed to fail. It's too risky. The boss won't go for it. We set ourselves up with an organizational sclerosis that holds us back from pursuing the future. Try to do things you haven't done before. It's only by pushing the boundaries that we can manage to get ahead. Empower yourself with knowledge. Empower yourself with skills. Determine each and every day that there are some new things that you are going to try to figure out. Look, 10 minutes before I went live online here today, I'm having an audio problem with the moment that I try to play a video with the sound. I downloaded some software. I haven't got it working, but I've left the video in. I'm going to play it again in a moment. But I'll fix it through the next week, because I empower myself with the ability to get new knowledge on how to fix problems. Question. Look, we develop assumptions and habits and routines that hold us back. We also question our validity, our purpose, our value, our role when we go through a period of economic calamity like this. Look, as a motivational futurist, how can you, go into each and every day when you realize you can't be very motivational to people? And I actually received an email message from someone last week who saw me years ago at a veterinary conference. And she said, based on what she heard from me about the future, she left her practice. She went back to school when she was 45 years older than the other students. She got a new degree in medical science. She's developed a patent, and she's pursuing a new research career. I mean, I was floored by the fact that I could have such an impact on someone. I don't mind sharing with you that through this process, there have been days in which I've questioned my relevance and role. Who wants to hear from a futurist when the future right now is so darn bad? But when you get something like that, it empowers you with the motivation to go ahead and change the world. Focus on growth, focus on opportunity, focus on where we can go in the future and where you can take yourself. You got to be action oriented. There is no opportunity, there is no time to make excuses about the fact that we didn't get involved and we didn't move forward. You do those 10 things and that helps you to get ahead into the future. But wait, it goes to 11. I've always been a fan of Spinal Tap. And with that, the most important word of all of those 10 great words is enjoy. Take your life to 11. There's always an opportunity to do a little bit more. Because if you do, you get a huge win. My huge win last week was when I made the national news and a whole bunch of people saw it, because it was a really wonderful story. It wasn't about me. It was about how Canadians are reinventing themselves on a regular basis. I'm going to play the full clip for you here before I end this week's broadcast. The audio quality is not great. I know that. It's also available on various blog posts on my site, or send me an email, jcarroll@jimcarroll.com, and I can get it to you. But give it a watch, because it covers what a variety of ordinary people are doing to reinvent their future, take risk, and move to the next stage. The key question as you watch it, are you one of these individuals? And with that, look at that, failure happens, and the scene was not properly queued up. So let me go and find it, and we'll get right into it. Here we go.
On this Saturday night, Canadian Reinvention.
It's all about, what we are doing to try to get ready for tomorrow.
The traditional business model takes on a new twist.
Global National with Robin Gill.
COVID-19 has shuttered so many businesses across Canada for now and for good. But sometimes when one door closes, another opens. As the pandemic spotlights the urgency for innovation, Mike Armstrong looks at how Canadians are adapting.
If they wanted to keep selling vehicles at this Alberta auction house, physical distancing meant they had to find a new way of doing it. Well, they're doing it now without people, what was once the most important thing for an auction house.
In one of our larger events, upwards of 15,000 people registered online.
I'm not bad myself.
COVID-19 closures left performer Martin Kerr without anywhere to perform. Bars have shut down, festivals are being canceled, but instead of sitting at home, Kerr and his manager put out word he'd take gigs just about anywhere.
Requests started flooding in, and we've got about 20 booked already, I think, all over the city.
Disruption is occurring everywhere.
Jim Carroll would normally be on a stage somewhere talking trends. He's a futurologist. Instead, he's working out of his home, delivering speeches from a new studio. Carroll says COVID-19 is driving urgency to innovate.
Well, it's all about attitude. It's all about mindset. It's all about, what we are doing to try to get ready for tomorrow.
And let's go!
Whether it's a BC trainer who's moved online or a new production line at a Quebec company making hand sanitizer, Canadians are innovating.
I was like, okay.
One that Carroll's following is an Ontario farmer who'd normally be selling at farmers markets. Instead, in a matter of days, he created a virtual market and distribution system for himself and other producers.
I'm running my farm. Like, I'm growing food. I'm growing even more food right now than I had planned to this year.
Carroll says what innovators are doing is adapting instead of sitting back, and that this era will leave a legacy.
5 or 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this and go like, that was really a massive breeding ground for innovation and creativity that was simply unparalleled.
Carroll may make a living predicting trends and where things are headed, but he says right now in the present, he's having trouble believing how quickly things are moving. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
And that's it for this week. New camera, new backdrop, new excitement, new energy. Look, I'm thrilled you can join me. What I'm going to commit to next week, because people have been telling me, number one, Q&A. We want to ask you some questions. And I think if we do that, I'm doing about 20, 30 minutes. We can move this out to a little bit of a longer period of time. Number two, I do have a really cool Skype interview feature, which a lot of folks using this software are taking advantage of. And so one of my next steps as well is to introduce a Skype Q&A so that over in the other window, look at that, I even pointed in the right direction, I can bring in a Skype visitor for a discussion. So those are two big issues on my plate, Q&A, interaction, and interviewing other people. So I hope you keep participating. I'm pumped. I'm committed to doing this going forward and doing what I can to be a part of that 10% in the global speaker community who are really out there with a powerful and useful message. Thank you for your time. We will see you next week.